Week 8 is upon us in the college football season, so it's time for some predictions. Let's get it.
Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. Jimmy, how are you today?
Good. Tired. I went to Alabama volleyball last night, and the TV people made us tip off. I don't know if you call that tip off. The game started at 8 o'clock. Oh, man, that was a late.
Well, did we win?
We did not. We lost in a 5-set thriller to the LSU Tigers. The volleyball team's not great. They're not great yet. It's first-year coach. I get the feeling, I'm not exactly a volleyball guru, but I get the feeling they're improving. They're not good, but they're getting better, and sort of like the direction. But a bit of a rebuilding thing going on.
Okay. Well, it's week 8. It's time for some predictions. It's not exactly the greatest weekend in college football history. Last weekend may have been. For a lot of college football fans overall, not necessarily Alabama fans. Vandy at Missouri, I'm not even going to do it. Missouri. I hope that Missouri, yeah, okay, that's fair. One that is interesting to me is Texas A&M at South Kakalaki. Look, yes. A&M, I believe they're goodness gracious, sorry.
Jimbo Fisher does not like us. Every time we bring him up, he's calling us, going, "Would y'all shut the heck up?"
Yep, he definitely is. He is not a fan. So anyway, Texas A&M at South Kakalaki is interesting. South Carolina is 4-2. Texas A&M, I believe, is 3-3. So, I mean, Jimbo Fisher could be staring a losing record in the face if he loses this game. That's quite interesting for a man with a $90 million buyout.
Yeah, and hey, I think this game is really losable for A&M. I think Carolina's a good team. They're well coached. They're sort of a fun team because Shane Beamer's such a good guy. And I'll tell you what, South Carolina's better at quarterback. I know Spencer Rattler's maddeningly inconsistent, but when he's at his best, A&M doesn't have anyone close to him. A&M's got the better team. I'm picking A&M to win this game, and I think A&M wins a tight one. But I'm just saying that it should be alarming to A&M supporters that I'm nervous about picking A&M because Carolina might win this game at home. But I'll pick A&M because they should have more good players than South Carolina. A&M wins by 6 or 7.
All right, I'm going to pick South Carolina. I mean, I just don't think they're awful. Boy, what a vote of confidence. I think they're pretty good. I don't even know about pretty good. They're good enough. They're good enough to beat an A&M team that I think exhausted all of their good luck, energy on the Alabama game. I think they played Alabama as well as they can play. And frankly, I know it came down to the last second or whatever, but frankly, Alabama kind of dominated that game. I mean, I'm probably oversimplifying that. I mean, there are people going, "What the heck are you talking about? You dominated you." I
might change my pick. You're making a good point. Hey, you know what? What's A&M playing for? They're 3-3. They're not going to win the West. They've already had a disappointing season. They already have. South Carolina's playing for a lot. This would be a big win for them. And they're 4-2. They beat A&M and get to 5-2. They're putting together one of the best A&M seasons, best South Carolina seasons in a while. So I see South Carolina as being really motivated. It wouldn't be surprising to see A&M come out and just,
lay an egg.
Yep. Yeah. But I'm going to stick with my pick just because I'm picking the team that's got more good players. But yeah, this could so easily be a South Carolina win. And I do think let's pile on Jimbo. Let's make sure Jimbo calls us every show.
And I do think that A&M has more good players, but I think they have more good younger players. So, and look, South Carolina, here's the thing. They've always had good fan support. I mean, it's not perfect. They know where they stand in the college football hierarchy. And I feel like they're going to show up very excited for this. And I think the crowd's going to be a big reason that South Carolina comes out on top here. Boy, after that, I mean, I guess I'm not even talking about UT Martin, Tennessee. So let's go Ole Miss and LSU. I got a couple of questions here. First of all, I found it stunning that LSU is the favorite. Unless you look at it and say, okay, Ole Miss has played a bunch of soup cans, which they have for the most part, and they've had their own issues. And I guess some of it is LSU is coming off a nice win at Florida where they played very well. But, I don't even know who I really want to win this game.
Right.
I guess I'm going to pull for Ole Miss, and the reason being because if Ole Miss wins, I think LSU can sort of go in the tank. I know they got an off week before us, but so do we. And I would rather play an LSU team that's sort of like, what are we really playing for, than an LSU team that would only have one loss in the conference if they beat Ole Miss and be like, we're playing for a lot. They don't have a lot to play for if they lose this game. If they win this game, they have got something to play for. And Ole Miss is going to have something to play for even if they lose this week and against Texas A&M. So it doesn't matter. So I feel like I'm going to pull for Ole Miss to win this game. And I predict Ole Miss will win it and win it, by 7 points.
I think we differ here too. I mean, in terms of who to pull for, I guess Ole Miss, because anything that would make that Alabama-Ole Miss game as big as possible, I think is good for Alabama. But an LSU win sort of makes Alabama-LSU pretty big too. I think LSU is going to win. They've played well. If you think about it, they had that disastrous game one thing. That now feels like a year ago, not game one of this season. It feels like game 8 of last year. I mean, that was a long time ago. The disastrous loss to Florida State that a game they had won or should have won, and they didn't. Other than that, their only loss is sort of getting wiped out by Tennessee, which looks more and more understandable all the time. Other than that, LSU has won all their games. And Brian Kelly's a real good coach. I've been saying that all summer long. I mean, this guy's won everywhere he's been, very organized. He has a plan. He coaches his kids up. They rarely give away games. I think LSU is going to win this game at home, and I think Ole Miss's 7-0 start is going to look a lot different in a few weeks. I think as a product of their schedule, and I'm not convinced Ole Miss is anywhere nearly as good as where they're ranked right now. I think LSU wins. I think it's because LSU's the better team. Now, this could be really wrong. And if I'm wrong, if Ole Miss wins this game, I'll be impressed. I think LSU might be a better team than Ole Miss, just in this sense, Luke. I mean, for one thing, Ole Miss has lost Trigg for the season, and he was a big part of things to me. Ole Miss runs the ball and plays defense. I'm not convinced they'll run the ball well on LSU, and I'm not convinced their defense is that good. LSU's offense isn't much, but I think Ole Miss might be the better team. I mean, I think LSU might be the better team.
I find that puzzling. I don't know if they are or aren't.
I'll take Brian Kelly over Lane Kiffin. I know a lot of Alabama fans are Kiffin groupies. I do admit Lane Kiffin has improved Ole Miss's program significantly and big time in terms of excitement and optimism amongst the fan base there. Brian Kelly's a better coach, and I think LSU's probably got more good players, and Ole Miss hadn't really. I mean, Jackson Dart is Jackson Dart the one we've seen so far a big. Is he much better than Jaden Daniels? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. I could. That's why the spread is what it is. It's a tight game, but I think Ole Miss is the better team, frankly, and I think that this is the kind of game Lane Kiffin's going to revel in. And Brian, LSU so far seems to go up and down, and I feel like they were up last week, so I'm going to go down this week, and so I'll go Ole Miss. Jimmy, let me tell everybody about Underdog. This episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to spice up the college football season. It is so easy to get started. We have selections there that are available for the Alabama game, for any game you want to try. They'll have an over-under for Bryce Young or for Jahmyr Gibbs or something like that. You might like Virginia Tech's Caleb Smith to be higher than 67.5 receiving yards if you're into funky stuff like that. Or Will Mallory higher than 55 yards and a half receiving, whatever. Just these oddball games or big time games, whatever you want. It's easy to play and available in over 30 states. Just pick between 2 and 5 players across any team, not just Alabama, any team you want. I mean, you can pick Mississippi State, pick Ole Miss, LSU, whatever. It's a ton of fun. And decide if they were finished higher than lower than their projected stats. One of the easiest fantasy games to play out there, and you can win cold hard cash in a single game. Sign up with the promo code Locked On. That's one word, Locked On, one word. And Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. Deposit $100, get $100 free. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com or find the Underdog Fantasy app in the App Store, Google Play Store, or wherever you go. That's Underdog Fantasy promo code Locked On. That's one word, LOCKEDON, all one word. Get in on the college football pick'em action today, peoples. Okay, so time to talk a little Alabama, Mississippi State. Let's talk about predictions. Would you think let's talk about random predictions here before we get into game predictions next segment.
Sure.
You think there'll be any depth chart changes?
No. I think there could be some subtle things that maybe we wouldn't notice or fans wouldn't notice. There could be subtle things in terms of a massive personnel change. I do not believe so. I guess I wouldn't be stunned if Jermaine Burton had to sit this game out. That wouldn't surprise me. I wouldn't think that's a depth chart change, just a reaction to what happened at the end of the game in Knoxville. I wouldn't be stunned if that's the case. But no, I don't think there'll be any changes. I think that there will be and I fully expect to see a more intense Alabama this week, especially on defense.
Well, I muted myself. I thought you were going to go longer there, and I'm always trying to give you the floor, Jimmy. Okay, so who has more passing yards in this game, Bryce Young or Will Rogers?
Boy, that's a good question. I'll go Bryce Young.
Me too.
I hesitated for this reason. Alabama is going to have a balanced attack in the sense that Gibbs and McClellan are going to put up some pretty good rush numbers in this game. I feel confident. So that's kind of why I was like, because I don't think Mississippi State will run the ball much and they won't run it well. So basically all of Mississippi State's offense will be Will Rogers passing yards. But I still think Bryce throws for a few.
You know, it's funny. Mississippi State was sort of a darling early on. And now they're just sort of reverting to being what Mississippi State always is, right? I mean, look, they still have some pretty tough games on the horizon. And I just don't know how many – they're just going to be in what they always are. I mean, there's really no surprise. And I feel like Alabama's going to take care of business. I don't know if they'll cover the spread. I'll say Alabama wins by 17 or 20. But if I had to say that'll be my official prediction, spoiler alert. But if I had to pick a side, will Alabama cover or not? And if the gun to my head, I'm probably going they will cover because they've beaten Mississippi State 90-9 combined in the last 2 games.
Yeah, and I think some of it, some view of it is that Saban's defense, Golding's defense sort of matches up well with out. And I think there could be something to that. To me, I look more at the timing of the games. Last year, Alabama's coming off the A&M loss. They were ready to play really well, and State was the unfortunate next opponent. I sort of feel like that's a situation again here where I think we know Alabama's going to play hard. What's interesting to me, Luke, is I have no doubt Alabama's going to play hard, but can they play hard without making bushels of errors that keep Mississippi State in the game? I mean, can you play error-free football? I think they can, and I think they will. I'm high on Alabama playing really well on Saturday.
I'll make another prediction that Mississippi State will have more penalties than Alabama in a very thinly veiled attempt to try and appease Alabama fans. I believe this. Call me a conspiracy theorist, whatever you want to call me. I believe Mississippi State will have more penalties than Alabama. I believe there'll actually be a hold called on Mississippi State, which I don't know if there's even been one hold called against Alabama's opponents all year long that was accepted. And it's not going to work for me, because again, my whole goal is let's just try and get it right as quickly as possible, as often as possible. It doesn't have to be exactly even in terms of penalties, and one team doesn't have to have more than the other. I just want the officials to be better than the way they've been. And I feel like this is going to, I don't know, I'm not saying there's going to be some directive from the SEC office come down and say, yes, Alabama deserves to get some calls this weekend. I'm not saying that. I just think it's going to be a very random coinky-dink that Mississippi State will have more penalties than Alabama this weekend. That's my other big prediction. All right, let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we'll give our predictions for the game itself. All right, Jimmy, you have the floor. You go ahead and pick the contest. And
Yep. All right, right now. You want me to pick the game right now? You're on
right.
Mute. Yeah.
I was on mute, but right now.
I knew you had muted. That's why I asked you a question. I could tell from your body language. I'm like, he's muted. I think Alabama's going to play well. I think there will be a real emphasis on intensity this week, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. I think a lot of people are going to say, well, Alabama's going to focus on cutting down on mistakes. I tend to think these things iron out over the course of the season. I refuse to believe that an Alabama team is going to be, make huge errors weekly all season long from game 1 to game 12. I'm expecting sort of a cleaner Alabama game just on the law of averages. I think fewer penalties on the law of averages. And I think this Alabama team is better than a lot of people have noticed. I mean, I tweeted that yesterday. Only 3 teams in college football have scored more points than Alabama. Somehow that stuns some people to know that, but it's true. Alabama scores a lot of points, still do, averaging, I think, nearly 45 points a game, over 40. And I think that's where Alabama ends up again this weekend. I think they score 45 against what's actually a pretty good defense in Starkville. Leach gets all that attention for the offense, and rightfully so, and Will Rogers and the fun, air raid offense. But the fact is, State's actually built a pretty good defense this year. They have a defensive coordinator, Arnett, that's got sort of a hot name in the business. That corner, Emmanuel Forbes, is big time. He'll shut down whatever Alabama receiver he's covering. He's just a good player. He's better than any corner. He's probably the best cornerback in the SEC, frankly. Reminds me a little bit of Sauce Gardner, to be honest. I think State's good, but I think in this game, Alabama's offense is going to do its normal work, which is about 45 points. And defensively, I think this is going to be an intense effort. I do think State will score more than they have the last couple of years. And a nod to Will Rogers and how good he is. It's just a good player that has a future, I think, in the NFL. I'm going to say 45-17. But if I'm wrong, I might be giving State a few 2 points. But I want to say that Will Rogers is too good to shut down or shut out. But I'll go Alabama 45-17.
I do like that pick. That's more than Mike Leach has scored on Nick Saban to date. Boy, I said I'm going to make it a 17-point game. I think I lied. I think you've kind of talked me into. I think it's going to be. Let's go 51-10.
Oh goodness!
51-10.
That's
look,
impressive.
Here's the deal. I think Alabama finally is going. I keep saying this, so eventually it's going to happen. Just like the Washington Generals are eventually going to beat the Harlem Globetrotters. Alabama's going to play a good game here shortly, and I think this is going to be it. And they're going to play a good game heading into the bye week, have a much better attitude. I think that this Mississippi State squad is beginning to hit the skids a little bit. And so far, we have 2 games of sample size, Alabama versus Mississippi State, Mike Leach versus Nick Saban, and the combined total is 90-9. So why don't we say 52-10? That's the most points Mississippi State will have scored on Alabama since Mike Leach's been there. And Alabama's point total keeps going up as well. And I'm also going to predict, while I think Mississippi State does have a fantastic defensive back, like you said, I think that we'll have 2 guys go over 100 yards receiving.
2 over 100 yards receiving. That'd be fun. I hope that's true because you really need it. And if that's true, I hope one of them's a freshman, either Prentice or Bond.
I also hope
that would be
is true.
nice. Big game from Gibbs, just because he can't help it, but put together a big game every week because he's a real good player. I predicted earlier this spring, I just remembered this the other day. I predicted this summer in a surprise that Gibbs would be the SEC Player of the Year. I don't think that's going to be true. I think there's been too many good quarterbacks, but I hope people see people that were stunned and people that thought, man, Jimmy's just being full of Bama there. That's a crazy pick. I hope people see now, at least there was some logic and reasoning behind it. It was an objective call. It wasn't crazy. I think Gibbs is going to have a season that would qualify him for SEC Player of the Year. There'll just be others with a better case that play quarterback, like, for instance, Bryce Young, but also he'd have to today say that Hendon Hooker's the leading candidate.
I think that'll change too. I really do. But regardless, we will see how it plays out Saturday, and we'll be back here Sunday recapping the game, discussing it all. Man, thank you guys so much for following and subscribing. We appreciate you a ton. Hope you're enjoying this. We love doing it, and we just want to, we just want to entertain. That's all we want to do. So thank you guys a ton, and we'll be back Sunday. Until then, roll Tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.